Hello, my name is Reece George. This is Monarch Watch Project Digital Story, Milkweed Testing and Production for ENTO 322, Summer 2018. This project primarily took place at the TAMU Sediment and Erosion Control Lab at the Reece campus of Texas A&M University. The SEC lab is under the Texas A&M Transportation Institute and works with TxDOT and the transportation industry to research and evaluate roadside environmental management. It studies stormwater quality improvement, erosion and sediment control, and vegetation establishment and management in order to promote stability of Texas roads and the surrounding environments. At the lab location, they have a set of plots where they purposely grow milkweed plants in order to see how they affect soil retention, which is why it was useful for our project. Our community partners were Jet McFalls and Chris McClellan. Jet McFalls, the assistant research scientist at the Texas Transportation Institute, was our primary point of contact, and he talked with us over the normal courses of events when this project has been carried out in the past, and he explained the facility, location, and general project specifics. Chris McClellan, who is an engineering technician, acted as our on-site supervisor and advisor. These are our project members. My name is Reece George. I'm the one in the awesome Hawaiian shirt, and our main project leader was Mason Marshall, the guy who is taking the selfie in this photo. Ultimately, the goal of this project was to learn about milkweed's impact on the monarch butterfly population. However, to break it up into short, middle, and long-term goals, our short-term goal was to catalog the number and type of milkweed species in the study areas of the SEC lab, including providing descriptions of the different varieties of the plant. Our middle-term goal was to collect and test different varieties of milkweed species. This also intended on helping in weeding and cultivation in the growth plots. Unfortunately, we were not able to accomplish this goal due to scheduling changes on short notice. So an overview of our project planning stage. As I've already said, Mason Marshall led the group in communicating with the professor and project site management. We obtained the tasks required from site management. Then we counted and cataloged milkweed species in the designated plots. Finally, we looked at milkweeds growing in different soil control areas. And as I've already said, we planned to return the site in order to work on weeding and site management, but we were unable to thanks to sudden and unforeseen direction changes. Execution and results. We met on 12 July 2018 at the job site. We counted the average number of milkweed plants in the plots, concluding that there are roughly 130 to 160 milkweed specimens per plot. Next, we identified specimens of various wild sunflowers, woolly croton, also known as Croton capitatus, butterfly milkweed, also known as Asclepia tuberosa, Coreopsis, mimosa, and broadleaf milkweed in those plots. Most of the milkweed specimens reached 24 to 30 inches tall on average. We also observed growing conditions in a separate unwatered control area. This allowed us to see how milkweeds fared when they were in a healthy water-filled environment versus one that was almost completely dry. Here we see a few photos. First off, on the left is the milkweed plots, with some of us working and counting in the area. You see a lot of milkweed pretty prevalent all throughout the plot. On the right, you see a bit of entomology interacting with horticulture. We've got a stink bug crawling on a specimen of Asclepias tuberosa. Here's a quote from Mason Marshall, our project team leader, who is a bit of an expert in horticulture and entomology. I'll give you a moment to read it. Next, we have some more photos. On the right, there's a specimen of wild sunflower growing next to a milkweed, and on the left, we see broadleaf milkweed growing next to Asclepias tuberosa. Here we are counting the various milkweed plants, and then on the right, you see just how bad some of the weeds can choke out milkweed when they're left to just fare against each other without human interference. Finally, we see our non-irrigated control plot. There were only about 5 to 6 milkweed specimens located in this plot, and of those, pretty much all of them were not very healthy. They were somewhat stunted in growth and generally pretty weathered looking, as opposed to the milkweed specimens that occurred in the much more heavily watered area, which is, of course, it makes sense, but you do see just how unhealthy these plants become when they don't have much water. So cultivation and maintenance of milkweed. Given that milkweed is a wild-growing weed, it's generally pretty successful without human interference. As long as it's planted early enough in the winter to experience necessary amounts of cold and it gets moderate rainfall throughout the seasons, it tends to grow fairly healthy. Ultimately, this project could have been much more successful if we'd had some greater direction from the beginning. This greater direction could have included requiring students to go and care for plants once at the beginning of the semester and then returning once near the end of the semester. In doing this, we could have provided care to the specimens and plots, leaving one plot uncared for to use as a control, and then on a follow-up visit, we could have seen how that control plot fared versus the other plots where we had actually promoted milkweed growth by weeding out other plants. So ultimately, we have to wonder, what does a plant have to do with an entomology project? Well, milkweeds are extremely vital to the health of the monarch butterfly population. The monarch butterfly being the state butterfly of the state of Texas. Monarchs require milkweed plants to lay their eggs, and unlike most other insects, which find the plant foul-tasting and even lethal thanks to cardinalide toxins, monarch caterpillars are able to ingest milkweed without harm. They can then absorb these toxins and retain them without harm to themselves, using them as a defense against predators. This makes milkweed incredibly important to this state butterfly. And here we see on the left a group of monarch caterpillars feasting on a milkweed, and on the right we see a monarch butterfly running around on a milkweed flower.